It was an early afternoon in Poland. Fluttershy had been asked to come over to Twilight's castle for some tea, since they had even been able to see much each other as much since Twilight being the head mayor from the School of Friendship, and that Fluttershy had to be looking after her animal friends and being a teacher at the school. But now with the summer break, they have a lot of time to spend time with each other. So Fluttershy had been asked by Twilight to come over to have some tea, which she said yes. At the castle, though, they were just talking about some old memories and old adventures they had over the years. Even when Fluttershy did ask Twilight how it is going between her and Flash Sentry, Twilight explained that it was going well between them, even though that they don't see each other so often due that Flash was stationed in the Crystal Empire. But they made it the long distance relationship to work. Even though the topic about relationship, Fluttershy was asked by Twilight how it's going her between if she had found some special someone yet. But Fluttershy said that she hadn't, or she hasn't even focused on much on dating, since she has been a teacher at School of Friendship, and that she had to look after her animal friends, and she barely had enough free time to even focus on dating. Or there was another reason that she was a bit too shy to even go out ask somebody out on a date. Even she has many close male friends who lives in Ponyville that she probably could ask out on a date, but even though that she was still too shy to even ask any pony out, which Fluttershy, that her least her friend Twilight accepted. But then Twilight remembered something that she heard from Rarity, that they had recently opened a speed dating service in Ponyville, and since speed dating had been quite popular in both Canterlot and Trottingham and Manhattan, so Fluttershy was told from Twilight about this idea. She actually suggested that she may try this speed dating out. At least, the same thing for something for her. After all, speed dating had helped many ponies across the country in the lot across the kingdom. Even though that Fluttershy was a little bit skeptical about this idea, but Fluttershy was told by Rarity by Twilight if she wanted to know more about speed dating, she probably had gone to ask Rarity because she has more information and more how the things work. Since Twilight hasn't been interested in that, since she has a long term boyfriend already, and she didn't have any much time to look up this study more about speed dating. But Fluttershy said that she will probably ask Rarity when she meets her next time. Later that afternoon, after that Fluttershy left the castle, she looked around at the park, and before she was about to go home, she literally ran into Rarity and just remembered what the Twilight did tell her earlier before she left about this speed dating and asked Rarity. Even though Rarity herself was a little bit hurried back to work, but Fluttershy asked if she had just a moment because she wanted to ask her something about this so-called speed dating service. When Rarity heard that, her eyes sparkled up. She was like, "Darling, you really need to try it. There has been a many a success all across the kingdom. This is something you should probably try, though." And even though that Rarity saw that Fluttershy was a little bit hesitant at first, but "I don't know," said Fluttershy. "Darling, you try to go there on Friday. At least try it once to see if it's something that is up for you." Even though Rarity had a point, she wouldn't know if this place was something for her if she didn't give it a try. So she promised to give it a try on Friday. And since Friday was only about a few days away, it would give Fluttershy some time to think some more. But as Friday arrived, Fluttershy was still hesitant to even go into Ponyville or at least into town to see this so-called speeding service. But she remembered a promise to Rarity, so she decided to go in there, and she arrived around 1 p.m. at the service location. She was actually quite surprised. There were a lot of stallions and even mares at this place. So she signed up and decided to wait until it was dark. When the speed dating started, she would quickly match with a couple of stallions already. But after that, she had a couple of minutes talking with this each stallion. She didn't felt any sort of connection to any of them. But when near the end, she was smashed with an earth pony by the name Caramel Shine. Caramel Shine was actually had recently moved to Ponyville about over a year ago from Baltimore. He was actually quite happy to be moving there, and he was actually very pleasant. And after all, Caramel Shine and Fluttershy actually had a very decent conversation. And after that, the conversation was over and speed dating was over, most of the stallions or mares probably found some pony to be with or probably found at first date. But it wasn't until after, but now maybe just 2 hours later, after the service was over, when both Caramel Shine and Fluttershy left the service together. They were about to walk their separate ways when he asked her if she was probably hungry or something. And she admitted that she were hungry, and he suggested they maybe go to the restaurant nearby, maybe just to get something to eat. And she didn't mind that. So they went to this small restaurant, and sure enough, they actually had a good time. They talked about some old adventures she had and some common interests that he had. And it's surprising to her. They had a lot of interest in common. Caramel Shine loved animals. He couldn't have been around more happy to have a dog or a cat of his own. He loved cats, even especially any particular animal, even exotic ones. He actually shared a lot of common interests that even Fluttershy didn't expect. They had both type of love the same type of music, type almost the same type of food. And even though the Fluttershy hadn't even talked much to him before, but she actually had a good time. And after that, he asked her if she maybe wanted to maybe hang out sometime, just as a friend, of course. And she just smiled and she liked that. But a week later, Fluttershy actually heard a knock on the door, and she was surprised to see Caramel Shine outside. She wasn't even expecting any visitors, or especially in this case, Caramel Shine. But she let them in, and they started to actually have a good talk, and eventually let them go outside, just having tea. And even though Fluttershy had even known him for any particular long, she felt some sort of attraction to him. To her, he was quite handsome, but it was something about him that she could put it. But after a while, though, she actually started liking him. And a couple of days later, when Discord came over to Fluttershy's college for some tea, he actually asked her if she had been doing something lately. She then brought up the topic about that she had recently been at this speed dating service. And Discord was like, wait, you in the speed dating? How did that work? And how did it go? He was actually surprised when she mentioned that she did get along with one of the stallions by the name Caramel Shine. Wait, are you two dating or something? He asked. But she shook her head and said no. He had even asked her, or she had even asked him. They were just friends, just hanging out sometimes. But there was even something about it, though, she said, that is quite unique. He's very kind, very honest about himself. And, of course, even though Discord said, well, you seem to be having a crush on him, don't you, Fluttershy? Even that made her blush. But she didn't even know herself at that point. But she did have a crush on him. But she didn't even realize it until much later on. Because sometimes only about a week later after her time with Discord, she ran into Caramel Shine on the street and near the market. She was out there to buy some animal food when she ran into him. He actually then asked her if she wanted to maybe to go out with him on a picnic or maybe go out somewhere. She was surprised though, but she admitted that she would like that. So they decided to go out to Sugar Cube Corner as a first date on the next day. So Fluttershy actually went home, and even after she got home, she went back into Ponyville. She wanted to tell her friends all about this big news. When she ran into to Rarity, Spike, and even Twilight, she did mention this date to them. Both of Twilight and Rarity were shocked, but Rarity, she was even more excited. She really was really happy her friend had found her potential boyfriend. So they asked her, "Who is this date of her?" And she said it was Caramel Shine. And both looked at each other and said, "Wait, that Caramel Shine? Wait, you know about him?" And they both said yes. He is actually works as a librarian in the new library. And I have to admit to Frankenstein, he's quite handsome and very pleasant, very honest, and he loves to read like me myself. And I mean, I I don't think he's a bad choice, said Spike. Spike explained that he also liked his company. After all, Caramel Shine has always been kind not only to them, to her friends, but to almost any pony in town. And of course, the very next day, she waited outside Sugar Cube Corner for Caramel Shine to show up. And he did. And when he saw her, wow, you look very a bit different today. She smiled and nodded that she wanted to be look more different than she usually would be do. They both went inside and ordered a milkshake. There, they sat and talked and laughed and had a good time. Even when Pinkie didn't notice that, she was also aware that Fluttershy were on a first date. But Twilight had told Pinkie to stay away from her date because she didn't want her to interact and too much or to intervene in their date or ruin it, which Pinkie had agreed. Even though Pinkie stood in at the near the end of the store, smiling and thinking, and hoping this might work. Even after her first date with Caramel Shine went really well, she actually enjoyed his company at Sugar Cube Corner. And since it was still early afternoon, they both decided to go to the park to continue the date. They were at the park for about an hour or so and they went to buy some ice cream together. And then Fluttershy asked if Caramel wanted to come over for dinner the same evening. And he said, "Of course, I would actually like that." So they decided to come that he will make to come over to our place around 4 p.m. But before he left, he gave her actually a kiss on the cheek and said in a minute that he had a crush on her. And Fluttershy was really surprised and even he admitted that. But the same afternoon, but later around 4 p.m., Fluttershy was waiting for Caramel Shine to show up. And he was only about a couple of minutes late, but he arrived. They actually cooked the dinner together, and After dinner, they sat down and talked and talked and talked. They talked for several hours. It was until like 9 p.m. when both of them actually realized it was getting late. So Caramel Shine actually thanked for her company and for the date and even for the dinner. Fluttershy admit that she actually had a good time, even if they had to cook their dinner together. But he, but Caramel Shine did actually explain that he didn't mind if they had to cook dinner from the start or if they had ordered food already. As long as they had made something there together, that's only okay for him. He gave them a hug before they left. But the next morning, there was a rapid knocking on the front door at the college. Fluttershy usually wakes up around 8 a.m., but this was around 6:30 a.m. She was like, who can it be this early? And if there was any of her animal friends, they probably knock like gently on the door, but it was very rapidly knocking. And it was like very loud. And she thought, could it have been Harry the bear, one of her animal friends? But he wouldn't knock that much. So she quietly, slowly went down to the front door and opened. And it wasn't one of her animal friends standing by the door. It was actually Rainbow Dash. Fluttershy, you had to come with me now. But Rainbow, what are you doing here so early? You had to come with me now. What is it? It is Caramel Shine. What about it? He is at hospital. And Fluttershy was shocked. What? What? When? What happened? Uh, No time to explain. Come, quick. And so Fluttershy told Angel, who's also awake, that she had to leave. And there was a very emergency. Even though he was still tired even to recognize what's happening, but she was serious. And he nodded and was going to tell the others that she will be gone, but she will be back soon enough. And on the way, Fluttershy demanded to know exactly why she had to go to the hospital and what happened to Caramel Shine. Rainbow explained briefly that he was found early that morning by Derpy just outside of Everly Forest, close to where Fluttershy lives. He was found on the ground, very seriously injured. And Fluttershy asked, was he attacked? By who? Timberwolves. Timberwolves attacked him last night, and he must have used all his last energy that he had and crawled out and collapsed on the ground just outside the forest, said Rainbow Dash quickly. No, is he's stable for now, but you had to come with us to the hospital. And at the hospital, Fluttershy was very devastated after this shocking news. All her friends was there, and they were all shocked, worried about him. And the doctor later came out telling her that his condition was stable, but he was very weak. Fluttershy asked how this happened. Twilight thought maybe thinks that when he was about to leave when he was approaching every forest about to leave the area, she believes that some of the Timberwolves saw him and attacked him, but he managed to escape and he collapsed just some distance from the every forest and wasn't found until the morning by Derpy by some good chance. She was devastated. She asked if he can see her, and the doctor said only for a moment. He needed his rest, even though that he was already was unconscious. Fluttershy sat by his side for the brief moment that she was allowed, holding his hoof, and said, She hopes that he will make a quick recovery because she loves him and she doesn't want to lose him because she wants to be his girlfriend. And she even asked the doctor afterwards how long he had been staying at the hospital. The doctor said due to his serious injuries, they expect him for at least about a week. But they will keep her informed if his condition was getting worse or even better. But as for now, he's stable. His condition was stable but critical. So for the next couple of days, Fluttershy went to the hospital every those time and stood there every time when she was allowed, talking to him about her day has been going on and how she missed him. And about after a week, his condition had improved a lot more. And one day she received a message from Twilight that Caramel Shine had woken up. She flew as fast as she could to the hospital. She was crying to see him. She hugged him even though he said, "Ow, it hurts." But Fluttershy, I heard everything you told me. Wait, you did? And yes, I would like to be your boyfriend. She gave him a hug and they actually kissed as a first official kiss. Even though he had to stay at the hospital for the next couple of days just to make sure. When that time passed, he was allowed to return home and then they actually became an official couple. Even though Pinky wanted to throw a party to celebrate, but Caramel Shine that he preferred not to have too big party. But if it was just her friends, his girlfriends, it was Fluttershy and her friends and himself, that was okay. So even after this very disaster attack, he made a good recovery from it. And after a while, he actually started to love her even more and more. And after they had been together for about 4 years, he popped the question and asked her if she wanted to marry. And Fluttershy said yes immediately. She could have been happier to be with some pony like him. Honest, kind, brave, but most of all, kind. They actually got married only about a few weeks later, and they even went to Baltimore for their honeymoon, and they had a good time. About 2 years later, both both Caramel Shine and Fluttershy announced they were expecting a foal. They learned it was going to have a daughter, and just 2 years later, they expecting a second baby, a boy this time. Both were actually really quite happy to have not only a daughter and a son, but to have each other in their lives. Fluttershy was so close to lose Caramel Shine all those years ago when he was attacked by the Timberwolves. When she saw him there in the hospital bed, she realized he was the pony that she has been waiting for. And she was really happy that he did ask her to be her girlfriend. And even despite all that, their relationship only grew stronger and stronger for each single day. Even for Caramel, though, he could have been more happier to be with Fluttershy, since she made him quite happy. And this is how Fluttershy and Caramel Shine for the true love got a big family together. The end.